Hi. So this week I chose to do the option where I take the creativity test. And so when I read about creativity this week, I was surprised by all the things that go into an idea being creative. Like I didn't know that there was actual three things that the idea had to have in order to be called creative. And so the three things are, it has to be original, and that makes sense because a creative idea is original, it has to be useful, and it has to be surprising. And that one was kind of confusing to me at first and surprising. That a creative idea has to be oh my gosh. But once I kind of read through what it meant to be surprising, it just means that it shouldn't be an obvious solution to the problem. And that makes sense, because if you just go for the completely obvious solution, they're oh, well, that wasn't creative, that was just given to you basically. And so in this week's chapter, I also learned about two different types of creativity tests. The first one is called the Remote Associates Test, or the RAT test. And in this test, they'll give you three words, and then you're supposed to identify the fourth word that connects all of them together. And so the example that the book gave, was widow, bite, and monkey. And that one was pretty easy for me because it's spider, And so they're this one's easy, but it gets more difficult, And so, and then the second test that they had is called the Unusual Uses task. And it's where they give you a common object, and you're supposed to identify all the different uses that they could have for that object, which I thought was kind of cool, kind of interesting. And so in school, I always doing this is my evaluation of how I think I would do on this creativity test. These were my thoughts before I took it. So in school, I always doing the art classes, photography, drawing, painting, and I liked them a lot because the teacher would give me an assignment and kind of tell me basically exactly how to do it, and I would execute the idea really well, But when I didn't have someone telling me exactly what to do, it didn't turn out really great, because I felt I just had no ideas, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to make it good, And so I think my results will tell me that I'm not very creative. And so the first part of the test that I took was the Unusual Uses test, and that's where, they give you an item. And after I took it, I felt really dumb because they gave me a spoon, and I couldn't even think of more than three uses. It has been a really long day. So maybe that's why I just couldn't think of anything, but I came up with three things, and it was literally scooping things up. You could use it as oh my gosh, I can't even think of what it's called now. A crowbar, and then to make rings. And I feel all of those were super simple, so I wouldn't get very many points, none of them would be counted as creative or whatever. And then the second little test I took was in the it was a riddles quiz, and I solved the riddle pretty quickly. And so right after I read the full riddle, I was oh, it's this, So that got kind of a little bit of my confidence back after the Unusual Uses task. And then the next one I took was the Remote Associates test, and I got really confused because all the words were just written out in a line, and I couldn't tell where they were separated, and so I didn't know where the groups of three were. But once I figured it out, I figured out one of the sets of three, but the other two I had no idea. And so I did okay. And then the last creativity test was the candle problem. And they like tell you that there's a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and matches on a table, and you have to figure out a way to get the light on the wall in a way that the wax won't drip on the table. So I figured out the solution, but I went through like a couple of other like ideas before I came to that solution. And so you're supposed to like, the solution is you empty out the thumbtack box and you mount the like box to the wall with the thumbtacks, and you stick the candle in it and light the candle. I wasn't super surprised by my results. They weren't great, but they weren't like awful, you know? So, and I was surprised by like the way that you were like took these tests, because I thought it was gonna be like a multiple choice type thing. Like you go through and just kind of click what answer you think it should be, or like, you know, type out answers or something like that, and then like they generate your results at the end. But you have to like take the tests yourself and like assess your own results. So I feel like it's not gonna be like completely accurate, you know. But I feel like it's good to know how creative you are, because if you, and like what goes into being creative, because I feel like being creative is something that you could practice. So if you knew where you were on like the creativity scale and you didn't like where you were, then you could like work to like change it or something. And then my questions are, do you feel like you come up with creative ideas often? Like, are you one of those people who just like always has like 4 business ideas floating around in their heads? I know that's not me at all, but there are definitely people like that. And I think it's really awesome, but I just can't even come up with those things. So yes, that's my discussion.